The moment Jasmine Crockett changed everything. Picture this. You're watching live television when the President of the United States drops a bombshell that leaves every anchor speechless. What happened next would define courage in American politics forever. It was a Thursday night in Tempe, Arizona. The studio lights were hot, the cameras rolling, when President Trump said 8 words that froze the entire political world. Obama committed treason. The man should be tried. The anchor blinked twice, shuffled her papers, and cut to commercial. In the control room, chaos erupted. Producers shouted over each other. Phones rang nonstop. Nobody knew how to respond to what they'd just witnessed. But in a small side studio, Representative Jasmine Crockett wasn't panicked. She was scheduled for a simple segment on voting rights. Nothing dramatic, just talking points and sound bites. But when she saw that breaking news banner flash across the screen, something shifted in her eyes. She didn't look surprised. She looked ready. Her phone buzzed frantically. Her chief of staff poked his head in. "They want you on in 5. You sure you want to address that?" Jasmine looked up, calm and focused. "I don't think I have a choice." He lit the match. She walked to the main set like she was walking into battle. The hallway felt like stepping into a furnace. People whispered and stared, but she didn't stop. When anchor Leslie Tran asked for her thoughts, the studio fell silent. Then Jasmine leaned forward with quiet firmness that could cut through steel. Words have consequences. Leslie, especially when they come from the most powerful office in the country. Accusing a former president who served with honor and handed over power peacefully of treason? That's not just reckless. That's dangerous. While commentators scrambled and former generals texted reporters to explain what treason actually meant, Crockett sat anchored like a stone in a storm. "Let's be clear," she continued, hands clasped, voice measured. "Treason is defined in the Constitution. It's not a word you throw around like a football when you're having a bad news week. There's no evidence, no trial, no cause, just a man who needs a new distraction." When the host tried to interrupt, Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. He says a lot of things, but facts don't bend to fit his story. They're stubborn like that. Behind the cameras, the crew was frozen. This wasn't political theater. This was surgical precision. But Jasmine wasn't done. She stared directly into the camera. "My father served 2 tours. He taught me what patriotism means. It's not a slogan on a red hat. It's standing for something real, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient." The moment she walked off that set, everything changed. Her phone exploded with notifications. Within hours, she was trending worldwide with over 200,000 mentions and climbing. But the real test came the next day when President Trump fired back from the White House podium. Some angry congresswoman who I'd never even heard of until this week. She should be careful. People like that, loud, angry, ungrateful, they don't last long in Washington. That wasn't just political theater. That was a threat, broadcast to the nation. Most politicians would have backed down, would have issued carefully worded statements through spokespeople, would have played it safe. Not Jasmine Crockett. She opened her Twitter app and typed, "The president knows my name now." That's the problem with telling the truth. You become a threat to the lie. I'm not scared. I'm focused. The tweet went viral in minutes. Over 1 million impressions in an hour. But here's what made this moment legendary. A retired federal prosecutor wrote a public op-ed backing Crockett's legal analysis. A conservative judge from Arkansas sent her a handwritten letter praising her integrity. A Vietnam veteran who'd voted Republican his whole life called to say she didn't yell, didn't make excuses, she just told the truth. Even Republican Congressman Emmett Voss told a crowd of veterans, "I don't agree with her politics, but she didn't lie. She did what a lot of folks in my own party were too afraid to do. Call out nonsense for what it is." The wall was cracking. People weren't just listening. They were questioning. A week later, Jasmine stood before a packed auditorium at Western State University. No slides, no props, just her voice and that bone-deep steadiness she carried like armor. "When I was 9, she began, "my grandfather told me what treason meant. Not the textbook version, but the moral one. He said treason isn't just betraying your country. It's betraying the people who believe in it. She let the silence stretch. This moment where it isn't new. Every generation gets tested. Our test is whether we will allow power to twist language until the lie becomes the new common sense. Her voice grew stronger. When someone lies on live TV, calls it truth, and dares the world to blink first, that's not just a problem for politicians to solve. That's your problem. That's our responsibility. By the end, the entire room was on its feet. But perhaps the most powerful moment came from an unexpected source. A young girl in Nebraska who taped Jasmine's quote to her bedroom mirror. "You can't rewrite history every time it gets inconvenient." Below it, she'd written in marker, "I want to say the truth when I'm scared, too." That night, in a quiet hotel room, Jasmine saved that photo in a folder on her phone. She labeled it proof. Proof that standing tall doesn't always mean standing alone. Here's what Jasmine Crockett understood that night in that Arizona studio. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to shout louder than the noise. It's to speak so clearly, so truthfully, that everyone stops to listen. In a world where facts bend and power flexes, where the loudest lie can outshout the quiet truth, she chose to be the voice that wouldn't break. She chose to be the person who remembered that words have consequences, especially when they come from the most powerful office in the country. Because if enough of us speak up when it's hard, if enough of us choose truth over comfort, then no one can rewrite what's real. The question isn't whether you'll face that moment when silence is no longer neutral. The question is, when that moment comes, will you be ready?